Hello!
Hello, everyone!
Welcome to DnDTime Talks, where we discuss all things Dungeons and Dragons. I am one of your hosts, Pete.
And I am your other host, Jeremy.
Jeremy, how are
doing,
you
Pete?
today?
Oh shit! I beat you
what a
to it by,
crazy
like,
coincidence!
a little bit.
I guess then I will answer first. I'm doing
You better
pretty
answer.
well. Oh dear. I'm doing pretty well. That's it. I'm just doing pretty good. I had a regular day, and now I'm ready to talk about some alignment and all that.
Yeah, I am too. I'm doing really well. The pieces to my Tarask model just finished printing like a few hours ago, so I have one side of his body, which I haven't finished cleaning up, the other side of his body, which I haven't finished cleaning up. He's very big.
Oh, I gotta open the.
I got this.
I gotta see the stream so I can also
which
see
is
it.
spoopy, his tail, which is very big. Now, just for perspective, This is my girlfriend's mini in our game, and this is the Tarask's head. Just wanna. Oh yeah,
That's a big. He's a big guy.
boy. I'm very excited to.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Have a Tarask someday, or use a Tarask. I have a Tarask now. Did Jeremy get more rum? Mr. Plunderloot's asking. First of all, hello everyone, welcome everyone. I love you all. To answer the question, unfortunately, no, I didn't get more rum. Well, I have a Sailor Jerry's. I re-upped on the bad rum. I have not gotten more good rum. Is that a Thresher Shark? I'm not familiar with the Thresher Shark. I've heard of it before. I don't recall what it looks like.
Mr. Plunderloot just subscribed with Twitch Prime for the sixth consecutive month. That is pretty wild. That it's been that long. Thank you so much, Plunder. As always, it's good to have you. I see Sheba's saying starting early and everything. Yes, so we agreed beforehand. We're just gonna chill for a minute, and we won't officially begin talking about our talk until
2 minutes from now.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
So while we're waiting, Pete, I have a question for you.
Oh yes, you mentioned that you would have a question for me.
This is a question. I've not asked Pete this question yet, but it's gonna blow him away. Pete, we all are aware with what a scoff is.
Yes.
Pete, how would you describe a scoff? What is a scoff?
Sort of a haughty noise that one makes to imply that something is beneath them or that they have disdain for a thing.
Oh, that's a great description. A haughty sound to imply disdain. I dig it. My cat was very mad at me. Hello, buddy. Go say hello to everyone.
May I ask?
Say hello.
May I ask why you asked about the scoff?
I don't know.
Oh.
It was just in my head.
Fair enough. I wish I had a cool question to ask. Oh, how could I think there's a couple of scoffs there? The flannel pug has also scoffed.
But Sheba's scoff is pink for some reason. That makes it all the more insulting. Anywho, we're just about ready to finally start. Welcome everyone to DnDTime Talks. As we mentioned earlier, I am Jeremy and Pete is Pete.
And always will be.
This is a talk show where we discuss all things Dungeons and or Dragons. We got a cool topic today.
Yeah. Over the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about alignment. It is an extremely intricate topic. There's more to talk about with alignment than we'll ever be able to cover in this 1 hour period. We will do the best that we can. We're both excited to dive into this one. Should be a good one.
Yeah. And if you have opinions on alignment, which I'm certain you do, feel free to chat along and let us know how you guys all feel. Alignment's one of those topics that people have very strong opinions on.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see how everyone feels. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, we'll start. We'll talk about alignment. Without further ado, do you want me to say what it is?
No, Pete, we're not going to say what alignment is today. We're just going to talk about it without explaining it.
Well, we're going to be talking about alignment, but that's not all we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking about, specifically what it is. We're going to be talking about the individual alignments, sort of what it means to play or run those alignments. We'll give a couple of examples of, characters that you're all familiar with to contextualize it that are those alignments. We'll talk maybe a little bit in passing as we're going through them about kind of how one would play those, in particular, probably focusing on some of the more problematic ones. And we'll also kind of cover how we feel one should actually incorporate alignments and what kind of role that they should play in the game. Because this is a pretty, like we mentioned, this is a pretty dense, complicated subject. Yeah, so at kind of its basic level, it's just sort of a descriptor that you can use to talk about a belief system. But everyone has those horror stories about players justifying kind of bad actions and things that are unfun because of their alignment, I'm sure. I know that I personally have those, and I haven't played with that many people, so...
Indeed. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a change of pace from our last couple episodes, which have been on monsters, which have been mostly DM focused. I think this episode is really going to be applicable to players pretty heavily, as players are the ones playing characters. And, well, obviously NPCs and stuff have alignment, but they're usually not as important because they're not the player character.
Definitely players more than DMs today.
Yeah, so alignment basically, like Pete was saying, it refers to basically how characters fall on the scale of morality and ethics, and to a lesser degree, their kind of connection to civilization and the law of the land, how the world works. Most of the time, players don't, their characters aren't objectively good, objectively evil, but fall somewhere in between on these various axes on this first axis of morality. So it's pretty straightforward, right? Evil is I murder babies because it's fun. Good is I'm a farmer and I dedicate I donate my food to the local orphanage. They're pretty straightforward in terms of which ones which. I don't think we have to take a lot of time defining what good and what evil are, because if you look at them just black and white, they're very straightforward concepts.
Yes. And I think it's, to be clear, in the terms of talking about alignment, D&D kind of considers them to be objective ideals. There is a good and there is an evil. I think can be a lot of confusion about whether one is good. If one believes what one does is good, are they actually good? And I think for the purposes of D&D, the answer is no, there is an objective way to act that is good and an objective way to act that is evil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the second axis, which is important, is the law versus chaos axis. Indeed. The kind of eternal struggle in all of Dungeons and Dragons. Most adventures, most evil villains and protagonists, everything can be tied down to law versus chaos and good versus evil. Law versus chaos is a little more complicated because it's not quite as clear cut. Yeah. Obviously, on the most extreme cases, chaos is pretty easy to define, right? It's, I set that man's horse on fire because I could. And law is yes, my father was, I don't know, caught pickpocketing. Let's kill him, right? He must be tried and hung, or whatever the law is. But yeah, basically it's the rule of law versus the kind of, the opposite of that. Yeah. Civilization versus non-civilization.
And there's some good comments in chat here. I see Flannel Pug saying alignments can evolve. Absolutely true. No character is the same alignment necessarily at each point in their life. But I was thinking earlier about good examples for an alignment. I was trying to come up with a good lawful neutral example. And I was thinking of Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, for anyone familiar. And then I was thinking about it, man, he was every alignment over different courses of that.
But he started.
I was thinking lawful neutral, but even at the beginning, he might have been lawful evil. That's a character. I don't even want to go down that road on that particular dude. The point is there are so many different ways that you can change, and I think we'll talk about this more later. But that's why it's important to kind of keep in mind that alignment is a descriptor for a character and not a hard set thing that a character has to be or stick to. But that's an awesome point, Flannel Pug.
Yeah. Over the course of a given story, whether it be a book or a story arc in a D&D campaign, characters may have a very set in stone, unwavering alignment, or their alignments may change. A couple of examples we've kind of pulled together, Pete's pulled together, of kind of classic characters that represent alignments that you may recognize from stories. There is Atticus Finch, a Lawful Good character. Lawful Good characters, generally speaking, uphold the law. They believe in justice for those who do misdeeds. They are about that law of the land and believing that the law of the land will make the land a better place.
Absolutely. They fight for the good of the people. And again, when speaking about just lawful characters in general, they believe that the will of the kind of the will of the group, the greater is more important than the one. And I think that's a great way to think about law and chaos in general, is just this idea of the collective versus the individual. Is just that's my own personal kind of guide point that I use to separate the two in my mind.
Yeah, lawful good characters tend to have a lot of faith in whatever systems they uphold in the land, throughout the lands. So when something like goes wrong, right, when someone is falsely convicted or something, that is something that lawful good characters tend to struggle to accept.
Yes, absolutely. And lawful good is not like in a perfect alignment, because someone who takes the law too seriously can end up doing harm by incorrectly interpreting it. Although that's a little bit more in the line of something that perhaps a lawful neutral character might do. But, deciding on something that is objectively good and sticking too close to that can end up almost making one evil in some cases. And that's kind of the fine line. Mine actually was saying, the lawful good paladins. That is the fine line. And that's one I didn't put down as a problematic one, but I think lawful good is another one that's worth talking about for sure.
Let's jump to neutral good. The next kind of step over. So on the axis of good and evil, lawful goods in one corner. Right on the top centered is neutral.
Yes. So neutral good characters are they do what they can to create good in the world, to make the world a better place. They have respect for the law, but they probably wouldn't consider themselves beholden to it is a good way to think of a neutral good character. An example that I chose arbitrarily for a neutral good that I think makes a good one is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is just your classic hero. He goes a little bit to a degree against the law in order to see that good is done, but he also definitely believes in it. I mean, you always see, he doesn't kill people. You always see him, tying up criminals and leaving them for the police to deal with. He works to them to a degree, but his goal is just doing good and making sure that good is done. So that's why that kind of character falls into that category. But neutral good's a very easy category to find characters for.
Yep. I guess that's really all to say, right? That's a great example of neutral good. I guess people are saying in chat, Iroh is another pretty good example.
Yeah, Iroh's a good one.
Yeah, Iroh would be a great example. Let's talk about chaotic good. So if neutral good's in the middle, in that case, we have chaotic good on the top right. And chaotic good represents a chaotic good character wants to do, they want to do the right thing. But they value their own freedom almost more than that. To the point where sometimes they won't do the right thing to preserve that freedom. A great example is Robin Hood. Robin Hood will steal from the rich, give to the poor. Robin Hood's not afraid to shoot someone with their bow. Just because, and steal their stuff just because they're wealthy. They're not objectively a bad person. They're not doing anything wrong. But it's... yeah, exactly. It's just that because they're wealthy, he's going to do this.
Absolutely. And so it has this sort of, they make their own choices. And I think there's also another way to look at the chaos. And I think Robin Hood's also a good example is Robin Hood, in a lot of ways, actively dislikes what is established. As much as he's stealing from the wealthy, he's also intentionally like spitting in the face of the established order by doing so. So he's not just helping what is good, he is actively kind of making statements about how he feels about establishment and how he wants to be free and live his life.
Yeah, like in a classic D&D example, the leader of a rebellion would generally be a chaotic good character. They're rebelling against like an evil king or something.
And a question here from Opal Dragon 98. What would Drizzt from the Legend of Drizzt be? I don't actually know very much about Drizzt personally, but my instinct from what I do know would say probably be a neutral good. Do you know much about Drizzt, Jeremy?
You know, I'm not super familiar with Drizzt, to be perfectly frank. So unfortunately, I can't really tell. I think he's definitely on the like neutral to good kind of spectrum, but I'm just not sure where. I think he fits somewhere on the kind of top right-hand corner, because he's not lawful, as he is a drow that's not part of drow society.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already kind of violated the law of his people to a degree.
Yes.
So I think he's in that top right-hand corner, right? It's either
one of the two.
Neutral to chaotic good, or maybe more neutral. I'm not entirely positive.
Raventail Blacktalon says, I feel like chaotic good is more like screw the rules. I'm going to do what I got to do to make sure the right thing gets done. Yeah, that's another great way to run chaotic good. My favorite chaotic good, I just want to mention him. For any of the anime fans out there, I think the best example of chaotic good is Luffy from One Piece. He's the most ideal chaotic good in my mind, as he set out to the sea because he just wants to be free and do what he wants, but he also has extremely strong convictions of what is right and what is wrong. So if you're familiar with that character, I think that that's just the quintessential chaotic good. But yeah, that's a classic one. I think chaotic good is also the quintessential player character alignment.
Yeah, exactly, right? Ashiba says it right there in the chat. The people who will burn down a storage shed to smoke down a bad guy. Yeah, I mean, there's chaotic good right there. It's like, well, this is the right thing. You know, all right, we lose a little property along the way, but we got the bad guy.
Yeah.
And we know that he's bad, he's evil.
Who cares about that collateral?
So let's jump down to our next level. So we've just gone across the top spectrum. Now we're going down to the middle row of this kind of square of alignments, as we're talking about Lawful Neutral. Lawful Neutral is a character that doesn't care about the great battle of good versus evil in the world and in the multiverse, but really focuses on law and order in the land. And Pete picked out a hilarious example of a
I felt very good about this one,
which is super fitting. And that character is Jar Jar motherfucking Binks. Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I? Or do you?
Yeah, please do.
Jar Jar Binks in his role in the Star Wars prequels is a great example of a lawful neutral character. Oh, his people voted to kick him out? Okay, I'll leave. Not like any malice in his heart. He just left because, like, they told me to leave. Because that's the law of the land, and that's how things are going to go. When, when things start to get bad and Jar Jar Binks needs, the Chancellor needs his emergency powers to fight the whatever. Jar Jar Binks is like, yeah, absolutely. That's how things work, and rolls with that. Extreme kind of faith in the law, in the order of things, whether it's doing good or bad.
We got a couple of people, Mr. Plunderloot and Farfel, calling out
the best conspiracy theory.
It's one of the best conspiracy theory in anything I've ever seen. If you haven't read that conspiracy theory after this DnDTime Talks is over, I recommend looking up the Jar Jar Binks as a Sith Lord. It's very good. But assuming that that's not true, Lawful Neutral fits him very well. Another great example, when he first meets them and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan save his life, he just is now in a life debt with him, because that's how their culture works. That is the law of his culture. If you save his life, he now owes his life to you and will do, anything he can do to help you.
Yep, even after being kicked out and banished.
Yep,
still follows it to a T.
Indeed. So he's extremely lawful neutral. And that's just another good lawful neutral. Judge Dredd is one that is often kind of quoted as a more extreme example. But just people who believe in, follow, enforce the law. The judge is really kind of... when I think of lawful neutral, I just think of a figure that is a judge. Is my classic kind of internal picture that I have.
So let's talk about the next one, true neutral. True neutral characters are really interesting, and they're also really hard to do because true neutral does not give a rat's ass about law, chaos, good, or evil. That doesn't mean they don't care about things. A great example is the Ents from The Lord of the Rings. The Ents don't care about the great struggles of the multiverse. They care about their forest. And when something happens to their forest, then they're going to act. But until then, why would they? The good and the evil doesn't affect them. And so they are true neutral. They just mosey along. It's very difficult to play a true neutral character in a D&D campaign because what are your motivations, right? You have to have strong motivations against something or for something.
I've tried to do it, and it was... it was just very difficult. It's just very hard. When I think of the Ents being true neutral, the line that in my brain I always go to is the side. We are on no one's side because no one is on our side. Or I think it might be my side, and I am on no one's side. But the point taken. I think another good example of true neutral is, for anyone familiar with the Game of Thrones series, Tyrion Lannister, I think, is a great true neutral. At least in the position that he is at the start of the series. How he evolves as a character, obviously there's tons of characters that kind of shift and change. But unlike the Ents, who kind of are waiting for their own sort of reason to fight, and are just kind of insular. Tyrion Lannister is the kind of opposite end of the spectrum, where he's out kind of doing all different things. He's a politician, but he follows his own desires. He works within the rules of the law. He's not afraid to occasionally upturn them if need be. But for the most part, he kind of believes in a law and believes in a king. He does kind of small goods here and there where he sees them, but for the most part, he just wants to self-indulge and do the things that he enjoys. So this person that kind of... I think the Ents are true neutral in the sense where they are this kind of absence of alignment, and Tyrion is more of like, and has all of the alignments averaging to nothing.
Exactly. A great example of Tyrion would be a very good adventurer type true neutral character that you could actually play. Then we move on to the last one in this middle row.
The scariest of alignments.
This is an alignment that causes a lot of trouble at the table. We'll talk about this one later on. But chaotic neutral. It is a character that has no regard for rules, no care in the terms of the greater schemes of good versus evil. They will just do whatever they want, whenever they want. Now, that's not entirely true. Chaotic neutral characters have a sense of self-preservation, usually. Or at least if they're a character in a world where there's a lot of danger and they're still alive, they do.
Mm-hmm.
So a great example of this is Han Solo from Star Wars.
Yes.
We're talking about OG Han.
Yeah, and Han Solo evolves very much as a character, but I think the chaotic neutral Han Solo is the Han Solo that everyone loves when you first meet him in the cantina, and he shoots Greedo because he's trying to collect money from him. That's the chaotic neutral Han Solo, the true Han Solo of, I think, mine and most people's hearts.
Yeah, he's not gonna kill him just because he doesn't like him.
No,
but as soon as that's a threat, Han's gonna shoot.
Yes.
Speaking of which, Han shot first. I hope.
Yes, of course. But of course, it is necessary contractually when discussing that scene to mention that Han shot first.
Pete, you want to start us off on the evil train?
I'd love to talk about Lawful Evil.
I know you would.
Lawful Evil is my own personal favorite alignment, and Lawful Evil characters, they believe in the rule of society, and they believe that and will manipulate the rules and laws of society and exploit them to their own ends and benefit. Bionic Sheep says, lawful evil lawyers. I mean, I'm sure that's a pretty common trope, but yeah, that's a good example. And then if we're looking kind of historically, one could take a look at many of the tyrants of history, and apply the kind of alignment of lawful evil to those individuals. If you looked at even like, the World War II kind of Axis tyrants, your Stalins of the world, those are just very real and visceral examples of what lawful evil functions like in the world. If you want to discuss something a little bit more recent in pop culture, you could also look at Thanos as a character that is lawful evil from the recent Avengers Infinity War. In which I'm going to spoil Avengers Infinity War. I'm
so
going to
guys,
give you
if you haven't watched Avengers Infinity War, look away now. And when I make this face with my hands, that means we're good. Go ahead, Pete.
So Thanos believes very much in the rule of law, and he has created this law for himself where I will take these actions to ensure kind of the safety of worlds, and that action is to have the population of all the planets that he comes across, which is evil because even though he deems this as good and necessary for society to survive, he is objectively going against the wishes of others. He is imposing this ideal against and sort of preventing the autonomy of the people that he is doing this to in order to enact his goals. And that is lawful evil. It's a very interesting alignment, personally. Like I said, it's my personal favorite alignment to play. Maybe someday we could do individual alignments and just talk about like playing them for a whole day, because I'd love to talk about just playing lawful evil.
Yeah, the great thing about lawful evil is when you have a character, whether it be a villain or a player or anything that's lawful evil, a lot of times they think they're lawful good. And that's good, because that has a really cool juxtaposition.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, let's move on to neutral evil. This is at the smack dab in the middle at the bottom of our little alignment square. And neutral evil characters pretty much just, they follow their own interests without really regard for much consequence. A great kind of example to that is, well, I guess, yeah, Sauron's a pretty good example. Sauron, just an evil dude. He makes his rings of power to give to his minions. He tries to take over the world. Just classic big bad evil guy. He kills people who stand in his way and oppresses those who don't. Yeah, I mean, there you go.
It's very, very easy. Just like with neutral good, it is very easy to find examples of neutral evil. Basically, every villain in every major arc, the Emperor would be neutral evil. Voldemort of Harry Potter would be neutral evil. Just a person who's just kind of bad and is doing bad things is neutral evil. Which is a fun alignment, and that kind of classic villain is great just for being a villain for its own sake, almost, which, I like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they'll manipulate the establishment and the law if it benefits them, or they will burn it to the ground. So they really don't care either way.
Indeed.
And I guess this brings us to our last alignment, chaotic evil. Chaotic evil is used to define a character that values their personal freedom only.
Yes.
It's just that they only value their own personal freedom. They pretty much value nothing else. They don't value human life. They don't value order. They usually don't even want to oppress people too much. That's not even what their main goal tends to be.
They will do the things that they want to do, and they will do them without considering how their actions will affect anyone else.
Yep.
And I think the best, and this is an oft-quoted one, and it's a very easy example of chaotic evil, and that is the Joker. The Batman villain, the Joker. Specifically, if we really want to get into the gritty on it, the Joker as he appears in The Dark Knight from the Christian Bale trilogy, that particular Joker is almost the definition of chaotic evil. At one point, he has a quote where he talks about being an agent of chaos. I saw Mr. Plunderloot earlier mention that particular line, I'm an agent of chaos, where he almost defines chaotic evil in that little speech. But basically, he wants to bring down the establishment, and he doesn't care about what he has to do in order to do so.
Yep. There's really no plan after. It's not like, you can want to take down an establishment, but not be chaotic evil. For example, if you are raising a rebellion against the good king, and you want to take over and install your military dictatorship, right? You're still evil. You're just neutral evil.
Yes.
Chaotic evil is, I want to just burn it to the ground, and I'm not putting anything up after. I have no plans.
I just want to do it because I want to.
Fuck them. Yeah, just fuck them. Maybe you hate the king. Maybe you just feel like it.
Maybe some men just want to watch the world burn, as they say.
Exactly.
Also from that movie.
The key is chaotic evil cannot empathize. That is just straight up. You can never negotiate with a chaotic evil character. Remember that. Don't
Shiba says,
fuck around, because they'll trick you.
I was going to say, you forgot the secret hidden alignment, Bionic Shiba says. Chaotic stupid.
We'll talk about chaotic
yeah,
stupid.
we're going to actually, we do intend to talk about chaotic stupid. Also, Plunder says, lawful stupid. Matthias the Enchanter says about chaotic evil, sometimes they don't even care about themselves either. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they just care about the chaos.
So these are the 9 core alignments. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is, in discussing just alignment on the whole, are these actually important? Because for the most part, alignments are these just kind of things that describe the personality of characters. Is it important to define things in these, if somewhat oversimplified, very cut and dry terms? And my thought is actually yes. I don't know if you agree.
I was going to say, I really hope so. We just spent like half an hour talking about them. If they're important, we just wasted a lot of time.
Well, I don't think it's a waste of time anyway, because even if we disagree, to Jeremy, the D&D community definitely thinks that it has value on the whole. And I'm in agreement, but I don't know if it's necessarily the obvious reason why. In my own opinion on why alignment is important, because it defines conflict. In any game of D&D, in order for it to function, in order for there to be a reason for your heroes to go out and do things, they have to be in conflict with something. There has to be some kind of reason. Be it they are good and the evil rises, and now they have to go out and stop whatever the evil thing is. Or they are lawful and chaos threatens, and they have to go and put that chaos into line. Or whatever composition your party is, the alignment system is important just to identify what kind of things your characters would be opposed to. That's why we're talking about with the true neutral alignment. It's a very difficult alignment to play as an adventurer, because it's hard to find the motivation to go out. So alignment is very important in defining what motivates your character and what's important to them.
And not only for characters, it's also super important for defining not just NPCs, but factions in your world. A great example, I'm going to keep going back to Star Wars because I'm assuming that most of you know Star Wars. If you look at the original Star Wars, there's the Rebel Alliance versus the Empire. And that is a black and white battle, because the Rebel Alliance are good and the Empire is bad.
Indeed.
The Rebel Alliance does good things for people, and the Empire murders farmers. If you look at the newer Star Wars, specifically, what was it? Was it called The Force Awakens? Whichever the first of the new ones was. The Rebel Alliance isn't just good. The alignment of the Rebel Alliance, it really comes out as that more chaotic good kind of level, right? Or even chaotic neutral. They're willing to murder their informant once they have their information, if that will help them take down the authority, take down the Empire. And that's a really important note when you're coloring as a dungeon master, when you're coloring the factions in your world, right? If there's a faction that wants to take down the king, who's not like that bad of a king, but he's corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And that faction is just goody two shoes, like perfect, you're not giving your players much to really think about. You're saying, yes, these are the good guys and those are the bad guys. There's not a lot of nuance to their decision unless they're, evil characters, in which case that changes. But assuming they're a generic good adventuring party, well, they help this goody two shoes rebellion defeat the bad guy. If they see early on that the rebellion will do bad things, like the rebellion doesn't just kill the Empire soldiers and then give all of their money to the local farmers. No, they burn the farms because that's where the Empire's food comes from, right? You're making a much more realistic world. That verisimilitude, that suspension of disbelief in the world and the events going on in the world really becomes a lot more real and a lot more visceral, and gives your characters and your players something to really chew on, right? When they're figuring out, well, which sides do we support? Is there a winner here? Is there a right option? Yeah, the king's a little corrupt, but is that worse than what would have to be done to unseat him? Yeah, I just think that's a really important, just as a touchstone, right, for a dungeon master when you're building the world. Keep everything in consideration.
For sure. And yeah, kind of on that subject, Farfel.
Sorry, I just read Lawful Dead.
Farfel says, I don't know if you need alignment to define these things. I think alignment is just helpful, but not necessary.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the, I think that's one of the core things that we want to talk about here. And in a lot of ways, that idea that alignment is necessary can be a real problem in D&D games. For one thing, it can kind of really constrain your creativity. Because obviously, and like some of the stuff that Jeremy was just talking about, that really sort of nuanced morality of that rebellion that he was describing, that has a lot more going on than could be defined inside of those 9 squares. That is, and that's kind of, when people think of alignment, I think for the most part, I'm sure all of you at some point have seen the 9 squared alignment box with just pictures of characters in it, defining them by their alignment. But there is far more to any individual character than can actually fit in that space. And if you let alignment too much rule how you make decisions as a character, how your character would think, how you build your character initially, and what personality traits they have, then you'll end up a lot of the time just kind of making things that have already existed, and making things that are kind of the same. Like the characters that we've just described, you'll end up building kind of reflections of them without actually creating something new. So, and that can be cool. I don't want to knock that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Agreed.
But I guess I wasn't saying, I mean, when I was describing that, like that nuanced thought, I wasn't sure whether that rebellion was chaotic good, chaotic neutral, maybe even chaotic evil at that point. And that's exactly the point of why these are useful, but not defining so much. They're great bench points. You know what chaotic evil is. It is, I burn the farms to starve out the Empire because the Empire is evil. That's chaotic, I guess chaotic evil. Yeah, that's chaotic evil.
It's on the border between, I would say, evil and neutral, but yeah.
And so the real thought, the benchmark is, well, where does my rebellion fall between that and chaotic neutral, which is, I'll do some bad things like kill my informants, but if I need to, but whatever. And then chaotic good, which is like, yes, they rob from the military and give to the peasant. Those are the 3, where does my rebellion fall on that scale? And that's where it becomes helpful, not in defining what the rebellion is, but giving you a good perspective.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the problems with alignment. I think we've just touched on a couple in that it can't actually be used to define anything, because if you say, I am this, you're really constraining yourself.
Absolutely. And one of the kind of the places, and we'd mentioned before that we were going to talk about, is one of the places that people often do this is by deciding on their character's alignment, sticking to it steadfast, and then acting in ways that either one are unfun for them or two unfun for the other players at the table because they've decided that their character falls into this box and that is the only course of action that their character is able to take at any given moment because they've pigeonholed. So which one do you want to start with? Because I think there's problems with evil, there's problems with lawful, there's problems with chaotic. There's almost, I don't think
Let's
as
start
a rule,
with evil. I think evil's a little more nuanced. So if a lot of people, they'll come to sit down at a table and they'll say, all right, I want to play an evil character, or I want to play an extremely chaotic neutral character. Chaotic neutral, lovingly known as chaotic stupid by some, or hatefully known as, depending on who you talk to. And the most important thing, if you're interested in playing one of those types of characters, you have to communicate with your group.
Yep.
Right. You can't just show up at a table totally randomly with your just chaotic evil or chaotic neutral or, lawful evil character and expect everything to work. Assuming people are like really playing their characters a lot. If you're not in a heavy role-playing game, that might work, but in that case, why are you bothering to play a more nuanced alignment? But anyway, so that's the number one thing. Playing evil characters, it can seem cool. A lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I want to be the Darth Vader, or I want to be the warlock that worships Asmodeus and kills people to condemn their souls to hell, or what have you.
And that's fine, and you can tell an awesome story doing that. But it's just a question of making sure that it's a question of, one, making sure that your DM and the other players at the table are cool with that, and two, thinking about how your actions are going to affect the fun of people around you. Because when you're an evil character in a party of good people, and you have, say, an important wizard NPC that you've befriended and that gives you quests all the time, and one day that evil character just makes the decision that, I need to collect souls for a ritual, so I'm just going to stab this in particular wizard that we're friends with and collect this individual soul. That's going to be super unfun for the other people at the table who really enjoy interacting with this character. So find ways to take the action and to have the fun that you want to have, such that it doesn't necessarily negatively impede upon the fun of other people, is really the key.
Yeah. And this kind of, what I would say ties into that. Think about why it's fun for you. If the answer is because it's going to frustrate everyone else, you need to reconsider what you're doing because you're a problem player. If your answer is because I've made this nuanced character and that was what the character would do, you need to think again and say, is it because I'm annoying everyone else and that's amusing to me? You need to don't think about that a second time. And then if the answer is still no, then you think, is this going to just infuriate everyone I'm playing with?
Yeah, that's the big one.
And then you make your choice.
And that is as common with the chaotic alignment too. Chaotic neutral can have that just as much. You always hear the stories, the player that pickpockets all of his allies and steals their gold because they're a rogue with an insanely high sleight of hand check and no one can ever catch him. Which, even if it's the thing that character would do, it's just not fun for the group. Countless examples. I know, like I said, I've personally experienced this. Jeremy, I'm sure you as well have countless times.
Yeah.
I love, and this is not necessarily true, any alignment taken too literally and taken without respect for the other people at your table can be a little bit too ridiculous. And I think Farfel has an awesome example right there. Farfel talking, I won't read the whole thing as it's complicated, but talking about killing this random old man because statistically speaking, he was more likely to be evil. So therefore it was the lawful good choice that would benefit the most characters in societies to kill him immediately. That is another great example of lawful gone too far.
Yeah, I mean, I have a great example from once a long time ago back. I think it was my first real campaign in 5e. there was a character who we came across some like low petty criminals, and this Lawful Good paladin's like, all right, we got to cut off their hands because they tried to steal from us after we like beat them up and they surrendered, and he just cut off their hands. And it's just like, what the fuck, dude? And because like, you know, we beat these like people who were trying to steal, you know, coppers, to a pulp, and then they surrender, and then you cut off their what? You know, you can go in either direction. Anything taken to the extreme is a problem. If you look at your character and you can point, this is actually a great point for where the alignment system is very helpful. If you can point to a single square in the alignment and say, I'm exactly that, that's probably bad. That's probably a bad thing. Factions that you fight in the world, those can fit those categories, but player characters usually shouldn't.
Yes.
Usually. A little more detailed than that.
Because, you know, no individual is, you know, truly one alignment, obviously with exceptions to every rule that is ever said. But no individual is truly one alignment. I'm sure you all got a little bit of everything in you. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, I mean, that's really the important kind of takeaway with like alignments is make sure you're doing what's fun for the table. I mean, that's going to come around in a lot of different things, but that's super important for this in particular. So let's talk a little bit about like playing some of these alignments, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy, I'm curious, what is your favorite alignment?
You hit me right there. I like Lawful Good. Lawful Good. Well, no. I like Lawful Good that reaches toward that Lawful Evil. My very first character was a cleric. I was the last person to the table when we were playing, so I was stuck with the cleric, and I made my character, and I made it was 4th edition, so they were a Deva cleric, but they were what is effectively an Azamar cleric now, and I built him to shoot laser beams, basically light laser beams, and he was very bad. We beat a bunch of orcs up. We captured one. We start interrogating him. And, you know, he's telling us all this stuff. We promise we won't kill him if he tells us the stuff. And then I kick him off the side of a cliff and shoot laser beams at him as he falls to his death. Because orcs are evil and must be destroyed.
Yes.
And your word normally is very important. Except, what is your word to an orc? They can hardly understand it anyway. Lots of very racist characters end up being Lawful Good.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
Maddie Morse
My
says,
character was very bad.
I was going to say, Maddie Morse is saying, lawful good does not mean lawful nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Amen.
All about that Amonitor's light. Gotta purge the evil. Yeah, when you're using words like purge, that's where it... I guess a Silver Flame and Eberron would fit under that kind of that category too. See, Kalar was there when I kicked that orc off a cliff. I guess the party was in. I think Sam wasn't okay with that, Kalar, but I think everyone else was cool with me kicking the orc off the cliff. That's what really matters.
You see, I've recently found, and you know, I'm a Lawful Evil. I'm a Lawful Evil fan. But I've found a real draw towards neutral good as of late, because I've kind of the opinion that neutral good is a very underrepresented alignment in player characters who usually want to choose one of the more extreme versions of good. Since good is the standard, I think most people want to gravitate towards the outsides. But I think neutral good is a surprisingly high depth and interesting alignment in that it's the commoner. The regular person is neutral good. Like the average citizen walking around the world is somewhere in between neutral and lawful good. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of benefit to just exploring what, say, just the craftsman is like. Really getting into the nitty-gritty on what just the humble merchant is like, and then exploring about how that changes and shapes as they become an adventurer. And I think a neutral good is it sounds like a boring alignment, but I think there's a lot of stories that you can tell that are undertold at most D&D tables, in my opinion.
Yeah, and actually, Pete, you just touched on something. The evolution, right, of alignment, how characters' alignments change throughout a campaign. One of the things that I recently did in Pete's campaign that came to a close a few months ago, it was how long were we playing that? 2 years?
2.5, almost 3.
2.5, almost 3 years. I was playing a character by the name of Bucket, and Bucket was a stupid ogre druid.
You want to do the Bucket voice just once? Just say that you're Bucket?
No, I'm Bucket! But anyway, I was Bucket. And when I went into that campaign, I actually went in with like an idea. And that idea was, and Pete, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but Bucket is a chaotic good, or not a chaotic good. Bucket is a neutral good character.
Yes.
And I want Bucket to become chaotic evil by the time the campaign's over. I had this idea of this peaceful, happy character that would, throughout the campaign, come into contact with society, with civilization, and hate it. And just completely fight and rail against it, and move to this chaotic evil, or maybe chaotic neutral, but more on the evil spectrum of the civilization needs to go away. The natural way is the way of... it's a very classic kind of alignment, actually, for druids, if you go way back. But I actually went into the campaign with that thought in mind, and that made some really interesting and fun moments for me throughout the game, where I was looking for opportunities to move Bucket in that direction. And so when certain NPCs acted a certain way that were part of the establishment, part of the authority, I'd have Bucket react or say things in such a way that would, show his opposition. And it started with just small little comments asking the other companions in the party, like, is this how things work here? It's weird. Why are people so mean? And then by the middle part, actually arguing with the people in charge. And then his crowning moment by the very end, backhanding the leader of the authority and banishing him via the plane shift spell to Nessus, the bottom layer of the Nine Hells.
That was pretty wild. That particular moment.
The fall kind of from grace of this character was a lot of fun and very engaging storytelling process to interact with. And just because I decided just right off the bat, I want to do this. I want to see this character go in this direction and play out how that works. And that's another way it can be super, super helpful to think of in terms of alignment, because it gives you an idea of where you want to go, what you want to do.
That's actually really interesting. I was going to say, that's really interesting, Jeremy. I didn't know that was something that you planned. Obviously, I saw it over the course of the campaign, and I knew that you were slowly kind of moving towards chaos. And, I got that vibe a little bit that you were heading down that path, but I didn't know it was like something that you had always consciously been going for. That's a really interesting strat. That's a cool idea. I never had considered the idea of planning like a character progression like that. I think that's a neat way to go about it.
I mean, in the end, Bucket ended up kind of coming back from that into a more of chaotic neutral to chaotic good level.
Yeah, he kind of, well, I'd say he ended on a very chaotic neutral note.
He went the whole U. He went down toward that chaotic evil, but then came back up. And it was cool. I didn't force the development, but I just kind of took the opportunities as they came. And it's easy to recognize them if you're looking for them. If you're not looking for the opportunities, you're not going to see them.
There's been some, I was going to say, there's been some cool comments in chat. I'm just going to go down because there's been a few. Matthias the Enchanter says about the evil alignment. I think where many people hit a snag when they try to play evil characters is that the actual vision of what evil looks like or actually behaves on a regular level. Evil isn't a trait that is blatantly obvious. Nobody reveals the fact that they're evil, in quotes, openly. So playing an evil character doesn't have to be an obnoxious, I need to kill everyone type of maelstrom. Absolutely. you could probably play an evil character. And this is a character concept that I thought of just now because of that statement. Playing like a chaotic evil character that is just, just a neutral good person. It's just entirely in their head, where every opportunity they see, they're just someone that on the inside is this just kind of, as you said, the I need to kill everyone maelstrom, but they never show it, and they go the whole campaign. It would just be, I think that would even be just a fun exercise as a player to try something like that. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
That's a very way to think about that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just at the end of a campaign, you just see, oh, I was chaotic evil. Like, that would be the weirdest thing.
I've been chaotic evil the whole time.
And even the DM is shocked. Psychopath says, any of the neutral alignments are your go-to. Most groups I play in hinder if my character is too passionate about something. Well, that's too bad.
But I don't know. I can see that. I've been in groups where there have been a lot of very passionate characters, a lot of passionate leaders in the group, and that can lead to some serious clashes. But
to be fair, I guess it depends on how one acts upon that passion. I don't know. That's I guess it depends. I don't know your table.
I like Raventail Black Talon's comment there. In my IRL game, my true neutral cleric has been shifting towards neutral evil after getting hijacked by another god. I've been showing it by making him slightly more selfish, ever so.
Yeah, you got to do it gradual,
subtlety, right?
Yeah.
Where by the time you eventually do something that really espouses your that shows how neutral evil you are, right? No one's surprised. But at the same time, they're like, how did this happen? But they're not shocked, It's that gradual just kind of shift that is really the most,
for sure.
Very rewarding in my.
I felt I felt that way about my a character that I played in one of Jeremy's games, where I was playing an advisor, is essentially where my character started out as an advisor to a local barony, and my character's whole story was that he grew up poor and climbed his way up the social ladder, and eventually got this position where he could live comfortably. He lived above most people, and he was very proud of that. And now he was just in a position where, he would manipulate this kind of easy to control individual into, doing things that he wanted and taking all of these advantage. And he was, by definition, a lawful evil character. And then a very powerful neutral evil threat appeared, and very, very slowly over the course of the campaign, in kind of fighting against this opposition, at first, trying to turn it to his advantage and kind of gain more power, but slowly, just over the long slog of battling this foe, just coming to believe that it was right to kill this entity and to bring down this evil force that was threatening him. And over the course of the game, he just slowly became more and more good. He had a family and developed a relationship with people, started to care about individuals when he had always been alone. Slowly and eventually, as he comes to this moment where he was, he's making major sacrifices. For example, Jeremy, if you remember when he was going to he was going to stab himself using up a revive scroll back at the town so he could be there for the birth of his son, which was just this very slow. That was kind of like, I think, what you were talking about before, with this all of a sudden reveal that no, this character has slowly become good and now is this completely different person than they were at the start. I love that. That's I think those are the kind of characters that stick with you and that you remember and that you love.
Exactly. I could not agree more. I mean, it's those characters that develop and that shift because of their experiences in the game. Those are the stories that, when people say, I like role-playing in D&D, I like Dungeons and Dragons as a role playing and storytelling experience. Those are the experiences you're trying to capture. And so just think about that. It can be as blatant and blunt as, me with my dumb ogre who I decided was going to be evil at some point. Or it can be as nuanced as, character right there that just in this lengthy struggle against what he first saw as competition, right? He ended up really caring about it. And that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's the story we're here to tell.
That's the juice of D&D, as it were, at least in my opinion. That's the stuff that's great. Just good storytelling and alignment. And I think Maddie Morgs had a good statement on that there. Good and evil is more selfless versus selfish, and law and chaos are methodical versus impulsive aspects, respectively. So an alignment is a good way to describe how your character expresses him or herself. Not necessarily or always your core thoughts and values. It's a snapshot of your character as character growth does indeed happen. And exactly that's it. Alignment doesn't define a character. Alignment is a way to describe a character to help people understand what they think. But it is not all that a character is.
I completely, yeah. I actually like something Bionic Shiba pointed out in chat. With big alignment changes like that, you need to throw in a callback somehow to remember what you used to be like. That is an excellent point, and I really love that.
I missed that. That's a very good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a dungeon master, right, if you're seeing this character change gradually happen over time in your players, give them an opportunity to, show that they aren't the character they used to be. You can even have it be as heavy-handed as when the campaign started, they robbed a caravan to get some money, right? They had found a caravan broken down on the side of the road and stuck the guy up because they needed the cash. And, you can just have that same thing happen at the end of the game, right? They have just defeated the big bad thing. They have saved the land. They have sacrificed dearly in doing what they had to do. And on the way back to town, they walk by a caravan broken down on the side of the road. And you have this moment where you can kind of harken back to we've really changed, right? As characters or even as an individual character. That's a fairly heavy-handed way. Still, deep, still prolific. So
I mean, I can picture that scene, Jeremy. I don't even think it's heavy-handed for the end of a campaign. I don't think there's anything too heavy-handed. I'm picturing this moment now where they go by that caravan, and if they were the bandit originally that was robbing caravans, I love the idea of the character looking and seeing the kid that they robbed now trying to rob them on the side of the road because he saw that was just a crux moment in his life, and he made that decision that strength was important, and now that wheels full circle and the character sees their impact. That could be a really dramatic and interesting scene for sure.
Yeah, I think also thinking about those great ways to frame. I mean, framing a campaign is an entirely different story.
But that's hard to do.
It's very hard to do, but when done right, fantastic. God, I'm never gonna forget Winter's End. We're gonna have to talk about Winter's End, just a whole episode at some point.
Indeed.
Anywho,
yeah, let's say it for alignment. We're starting to get wistful about old campaigns right now, but
that's it for alignment. This would be the episode that would bring
neither did I.
Jesus. Anywho, thank you everyone for hanging out with us. Thanks for the awesome chat, by the way. A lot of awesome stuff to say here. Pretty legit.
I'm laughing at Shiva's goes by caravan, looks at caravan, just for old times, robs caravan. That's a very good way for that campaign to end. So yeah, anyway, sorry. Thank you very much to everyone who hung out and contributed to the conversation. It was a fun talk today. Like I said, this is a very rich vein. I think each of those alignments we could have a talk about how to run them, and maybe someday we'll start going through and doing some of the more individual alignments and talking about different ways one could approach them. I think that could be fun potentially. But if you have ideas for what you want us to talk about next, please let us know in the comments or on Discord or anywhere that you would like to let us know. We have numerous ways in which you could reach either of us, so please do that.
Oh no, the Flannel Pug fell asleep.
Oh god.
It's okay, Flannel Pug.
Indeed.
You can watch it again on the VOD.
That you can.
Anyway, everyone, thank you again for watching. Thank you, Mr. Plunderloot, for your 6 months of support.
Indeed.
We super appreciate it. God, that you would give your money to little old Pete and Jeremy. It warms my heart. Or your Twitch Prime token, which is basically free money.
That's like money that... Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's all. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. I think Maddie Morgs is going to have a stream later on. I'm not positive. Maddie,
if Maddie Morgs is streaming, we will be hosting Maddie Morgs.
Yeah, absolutely. So check him out. I don't remember what he's going over right now, but I'm sure it's pretty radical. It usually is. So check him out. We'll be hosting it after this.
Absolutely.
Anyway, feel free to post a linky in chat or Pathfinder.
Ooh.
Oh damn! Looking at the second 2e Pathfinder. That's gonna be it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for Maddie Morgs. We'll be hosting him. And
tune into Pete and Jeremy's D&D time on Friday at 9 o'clock.
Do we want to announce Friday?
Oh, yeah, I think we absolutely can announce that. Every time Maddie Morgs, the link gets deleted. Hold on a second. Let me just...
Oh, no.
I can link your thing.
I'll talk about Friday while Pete does that. This Friday, we will be doing a Myth Tier event for our Myth Tier boss battles, which we will be having one this week. We do a whole big event, so all 3 episodes will be tied in and related. It should be pretty awesome. I'm really excited about this one. I'm really excited about all of them, but like the myth, particular.
The myth battles are something special.
They're something special indeed.
If you didn't see the last myth battle, make sure you check out this one. It should be very fun. We're both hyped. It's gonna be good.
Yeah. And then of course Saturday, we will be brewing up a
Oh wait, Saturday doing behind the screen, I would assume?
Yes, I'll be doing D&D behind the screen, which is basically a prep session for the Delves adventure, which will be going on Sunday. And we're going to be brewing up a delve from the ground up mostly. I'm going to come in with like a more solid concept this time, so we have a bit more of a restrained framework to work in. But I'm really excited about this concept. I think it's going to be good. I'm really excited to see what kind of crazy ideas my friends, the chat, come up with.
This is going to be another...
poor motherfuckers again.
This is going to be another one from scratch?
Another one from scratch.
All right, I'm also excited in that case.
I think we might be doing mostly those in the future. We'll see. But yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
I'm Pete.
Thanks so much for watching. Oh, we love you. I'm Jeremy.
I love you too. And this is DnDTime Talks.
Bye.